So you always did the stencil first?
Well, I painted the backgrounds, always the red to yellow first. And then when I'd get the images, then I'd figure out where I was going to, what parts needed to be white, and cut those out. And then, of course, being a stencil, trying to make sure that you didn't cut out things so that pieces would fall out.
Yeah.
And making it not too weak either. So, I mean, I knew I just cut this out, even though this is all white,
Yeah.
so that I could do it afterwards. And when you're trying to do a person's face, especially, that's, I found, the most challenging to create your stencil, because it's a more solid kind of way. It has the sharper lines, right?
Yeah.
Than blending things in.
Yeah.
And then just trying to find those highlights on a person's face. And then, like Rick Mercer,
Yeah.
to me, he kind of looks a little ghostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mr. Dressup. But it's because I was trying to stick to those colors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, David Suzuki doesn't look ghostly.
yeah,
He looks warm.
it looks warmer.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What was, I know this is going to be very hard to answer, but one was like the longest?
Took the longest to do?
Yeah.
Oh, some of these ones, like Chateau Frontenac, some that had just so much, and actually there was an even harder one. Like when you're cutting out all the white pieces, and it takes so much time, and actually I think even the tidal pool, because the Chateau Frontenac, the buildings, you know that they're squarish, right? But when I'm doing like the tidal pool picture, after you've cut out all the whites and you've got that red and yellow background, and you've painted and you've done the white part and you lift it up, it still doesn't look like anything until you add some of the blacks and stuff. And then it starts to, oh, okay, there it all is. But it's an interesting process because it still gives you like guidelines sort of thing to help you finish the painting up.
Earlier, it sounds like it only took you like a few months to do all these.
7 months so far, yeah.
Only? This
Yeah.
would take me like my entire life to do it. Because I'm not very patient at all.
What do you think it takes to do something like this, Avery?
I would think 3 or 4 years. I don't know.
Well, there's
Something.
painting, and then you got to come up with the ideas too.
Yeah,
That'd be
come up
hard.
with ideas. But that shows when you have a goal that you could, that gives you something to aim for.
And a deadline too.
A deadline, yeah. So then you can go, okay, I want to get this done, and this is when I'd like it done for, and then you just focus on it.
I do my best work when there's a deadline.
I don't like lots of pressure, so I just kind of systematically
Yeah.
just keep on moving ahead. And I think it's like all of life, you break things down into simpler parts.
How many pieces would you work on at a time? Just one at a time, or would you have multiple pieces going back and forth?
Multiple pieces going back and forth. Like I always painted 6 backgrounds at once, and then I would usually cut out 2 or 3 stencils at once, and then
That makes sense.
paint one, work on the other, do some black on another one, that type of process. So that it was all, I don't like cookie cutter type things, so
Yep.
you're always getting to do something different. It didn't feel so much like an assembly line. Not big on assembly lines.
So what sort of guidelines did you give yourself when you started doing this? Like what sort of parameters, like were you,
What?
as far as,
Well, that they be painted in red and white, that was huge.
Yeah.
And be themed on Canada. And I wanted them all to have a stencil. Just because I was wanting to know more about that. But also one of the reasons I chose to do stencils was because I don't think that the time that an artist takes to create something is usually really appreciated. And I figured the stencil would give me an opportunity to recreate, or at least part way through, like if I wanted to recreate one of these paintings, I would be kind of halfway there. They would always still be an original, because the background's going to be different, because it's always abstract.
Yeah.
And then you do the stencil, which is the same,
Yeah.
but then the after part is always going to be original too. So they would always be original, but it wouldn't be as much time involved if I wanted to recreate that painting again.
Yeah.
or not
Or if you have,
100%, but make it,
yeah, if you have two
Similar.
people saying, I'd like to buy that one.
yeah, I want to buy your polar bear, yeah.